Hello, I'm Dr. Ryan Anderson. I'm one of the founders of TLOCU. This is the third in our series of three webinars designed to teach you about the concept of getting out of the box. Now, in our previous webinars, we've talked about the concepts of way of being, light, and choice points, self-betrayal, and we've talked in depth about the ideas of self-deception, justification, and rationalization, as well as the box and box styles. This webinar will focus on what you can do to be able to get out of the box. So one thing to keep in mind when we begin to consider the idea of how to get outside of the box is that a key feature of the box is that sense of absolute certainty that we are right, or at least justified in the way we think, the way we feel, in our actions, in the present and in the past. And inside the box, as a part of that projection, every connection, every perception we have inside the box is designed to reinforce this idea. And there is no way out of the box without being able to question those fundamental pieces of our perception. So that is where we begin in the process of beginning to get out of the box. From the book The Choice, it describes the following. As I ponder my life, I can ask the question, do I show any of these signs of self-betrayal towards others? To sincerely question my own virtue is to question whether my self-justifications are false. In my question lies my liberation. So that's the first step, is being willing to question, could I be in the box right now? If I was in the box right now, if I was being resistant, if I was committing self-betrayal and self-deception, what would be the signs inside of me? And again, as a review, those would be things like our blaming and horribilization of other people through thoughts and feelings, excusing ourselves, focusing on our sense of rightness. That includes minimization, rationalization, justification, and forming alliances with other people who are willing to support our narrative. It includes portraying oneself as the victim in the situation. It involves insisting on one's own preferred way of being seen and feeling wrong and victimized if other people do not see us or portray us in the way we would prefer to be seen in the situation. It involves a distortion of values and portraying ourselves as the powerless victim of other people who are the ones responsible for the problems and also for the suffering with no input or contribution of our own. So as we begin to ponder this, one of the things we need to recognize is it helps to find an out-of-the-box place to be able to ponder this more fully. Now, that can be a lot of things. It can be an actual place, a place where we go and we find peace. It calms our mind down and it's easier to be thoughtful and introspective. It can be certain relationships where we're out of the box with that person and where that person is not going to be someone who's just simply going to reinforce our our self-justifying way of seeing things. It may be specific memories of times we've been outside of the box and reconnecting with what that felt like. There's a lot of different ways to find this. It's important for you to discover what these are for you, because in these places, in these relationships, in these memories, we begin the process of softening our heart and in shifting our mindset and our way of being. As we find ourselves in one of those types of mental and emotional spaces, or physical spaces, as the case may be, we begin to ask the second question. What is the full truth about myself towards this other person? Now, this is a very difficult question to answer completely honestly because we have a tendency to want to explain or justify or minimize. One technique that someone taught me is to tell the whole narrative, but don't say what the other person did. So don't say, the other person lied to me and I yelled at them. You say, I yelled at the other person. And you go through and you begin to realize, I think of this person as less intelligent than me. Don't say what they're doing that leads us to feel this is justified. Just say, what am I doing? I talk condescendingly about them. I interrupt them. I tear them down verbally. I dismiss their ideas. I assume that I know what they're going to say before they even have a chance to say it. I act as if I know better than them. And as you begin to do this, when you're just telling the one side of the story, you'll notice one of the things it creates is discomfort. We're beginning to reconnect with that sense of dissonance that we've been hiding through the process of our self-betrayal and through the process of the box. It's going to be very important not to allow ourselves to run from that discomfort. It is a part of realizing we are in the box. It's a part of our humanness recognizing I feel like I can do better than what I've been doing. And with this, we dive deeper. We begin to think about what is it like for this other person to be on the receiving end of me? That can be a very humbling question to answer. What's it like to be on the end of me while I'm lecturing, or while I am ignoring, or while I am arguing and cutting them down? What's it like? How would I feel about being the recipient of that in their situation? Would I feel that I was being treated correctly? What would I want? And so you really have to focus on this question of how have I added to this person's burdens, whether it was my intention or not. We're not asking about intention. We're asking about reality, about impact. How has being on the receiving end of me been a part of this person's hardships? And from there, we can proceed into the third question. Once we're able to tell the truth a little bit more about ourselves, it becomes easier to tell the truth more about the other person. What is the full truth about the other person? I know I've been probably minimizing things or overemphasizing things. So, what is it I've been exaggerating? And what have I been hiding, minimizing, or ignoring? What aspects of this other person have I been tucking away in my mind because they're inconvenient and they don't fit well with my self justifying narrative and my emotional resistance to that other person? What are their thoughts, their hopes, their fears, and dreams? How have I been minimizing or ignoring those things in this process? And as we are answering these questions, building upon the previous ones, we prepare ourselves to answer the fourth and the most important question, but one that we cannot really answer honestly unless we've been able to go through those previous steps. And this fourth question is, what is the right thing to do towards this person that I am currently resisting? It can be a lot of different things. It can be giving certain types of time or attention or validation, or recognizing that their self destructive behavior makes sense in the context of what they're experiencing, or recognizing that part of what they've been doing that I've been blaming them for is them reacting to me and that I've been contributing to it. And therefore, I need to contribute something different. So, what is it? Now, the tricky part about this is other people might be willing to make lots of suggestions. Well, you should do X. But the whole point of this question is for you to reconnect with your sense of light, right? That part of you that can sense the humanity of the other person, and from that sense the inherent invitations about how to treat that person. So while we may give all kinds of advice, the most important piece here is that you're reconnecting with that sense and seeing what it tells you you need to do in this situation to do what feels like the right thing by that other person. And this, once you've reconnected with that sense of light, you have let back in what the box has been blocking out. And as you're able to answer this question, it will tell you what you can do to get out of the box with them. Whatever the answer to that question is, that is the thing you can do to get out of the box with that person in this situation. Now, keep in mind that acting on that is imperative. Because if you simply answer the question but don't do anything about it, you should expect to revert back into the resistant way of being, to have the box crash back in around you again. Because having the answer, right, having that sense of light and resisting it, shutting it down, not following it, is how you get into the box in the first place. So you have to have the sense and respond to it to get out of the box and stay out of the box. As the old Irish proverb goes, you can't plow a field simply by turning it over in your mind. You're not going to solve this just by what you think. You need to act on that impression when you find it. Now, keep in mind, successfully getting out of the box with someone once doesn't mean that you're now going to be out of the box with them and with everyone else forever, because we're always confronted with opportunities to get back into the box. And just because we've managed to get out of the box and stay out of the box with one person doesn't mean that we're out of the box with everyone. That can become our new self justifying image. Well, I'm the sort of person who's out of the box with people. Well, that's just going to make us more blind to when we're in the box with people. But the whole idea behind this is over time, you can become more and more skilled and consistent in recognizing the box more frequently, faster, exiting it more and with less effort each time, spending more time outside of the box, and preventing yourself from entering the box more and more frequently. It's a growth process that as you do it more, it becomes easier, it becomes more instinctive, but it's never a process that means we've reached a point of full immunity and we never need to work on it or be thoughtful about it. We're cautious with it. But the more experiences we have with getting out of the box, the more reinforced we are that it's worth it, that it pays off, the more willing we are to put down our pride, to be willing to question ourselves, to be willing to reconnect and be vulnerable and own our side, because we will find that it works so much better, that it feels so much better, and that it changes our influence. That things that we felt powerless to be able to help something good happen before, we now have some power, some influence, some ability to work that way. So, from the book The Choice, it says, "So change, and I give others a different person to respond to. Give them a different person to respond to, and I give them a new world. I no longer exaggerate their faults and my virtues. I no longer ignore their virtues and my faults. I no longer use values to devalue them. They are no longer objects of blame. And therefore, as you change, you work on getting out of the box. You provide for the other person something different to respond to. This is the most powerful invitation you can have to help them begin to feel safe changing. To continue, ceasing to resist them, I no longer provoke their resistance of me. This is the source of my greatest contribution. Nothing I can do will help others cease their self betrayals as much as simply ceasing my own." Now, at the end of the day, we are trying to help your young adult child, and we are trying to use our influence and your influence for good. And we're trying to help empower them to use their own influence in their lives for their good. It's important in this process that you recognize that we work on getting out of the box. And as part of that, we are ceasing to try to change them. We are trying to help them change, but we are ceasing to try to change them. Those are two very different things. Or control them. We don't get out of the box saying, okay, now I'm entitled to you getting out of the box with me. Guess what? That's the I deserve box. And we're not as far outside the box as we thought we were, if that's the case. But when we're able to do that without saying, okay, now that I'm out of the box, you have to, we make it safe for them to feel like they can change without losing. And there is, in all my experience over many, many years of doing this, there is nothing I have seen more powerful in softening the heart of a teenager or a young adult towards their parent than to see their parent go through the process of evaluating their own box and of working on getting out of their own boxes. That is a powerful invitation for connection and healing and safety in that relationship. But if not, what if the person decides not to change? Well, in the choice, it says, others may not change when you change. True. But in the responsive way of being, I'm not offended when they don't. I am ceasing to blame others because it is the right thing to do for them, not because of what I want them to do for me. Expect others to change because I have changed, and I have not changed as much as I think. I have just found a new way to blame. In the responsive way of being, my expectations are colored not by accusation, but by compassion. I understand that others carry burdens that I do not see, including burdens I have placed on them by my own prior self betrayals. I accept this with equanimity. Seeing now with compassion, my view of others changes whether they change or not. So it's not I'll change and therefore you change. It's I'm going to change in these ways because it's the right thing to do. And I'm not going to say that you now owe me. Now, it is important. We talked about this a bit before. We can still be on the end of mistreatment, even abuse from other people. And that doesn't mean that we allow ourselves to continue to be abused if that's what's going on. This statement from the choice is important. It says, I can be a true victim. I can be hurt and mistreated by others. Not betraying myself, my feelings will be different. I won't additionally be victimizing myself. A genuine sense of loss may continue, including feelings of sorrow and grief. But I will not be burdened by the all consuming quest to blame and to insist on my victimhood. So there are times when other people are not going to change. And when we're in the box, it's like we continue to break the arm that they broke before to show how much they've hurt us. If the other person is not going to change and they continue to be abusive, this allows us to let go of the things that keep us from working on healing and moving forward, even if they will not change being in the box and being hurtful to us. So, all of this, these are interesting ideas, sometimes challenging ideas. And I've found that as people learn these, it takes a little while to wrap their head around them. And it takes even longer to actually put them into place. But to summarize, how would you put these things in action? First, you begin to develop a willingness and a habit to ask the question, am I showing signs of being in the box? Especially when you least want to ask it and you're most certain that you're not, that's the most important time to ask the question. From there, find an out of box place, physical locations, memories, people who are not sharing your narrative, but who love and care about you. And you begin to think about things anew. You ask yourself, what is the full truth about myself in this situation? You tell your actions, not their actions that you think justify yours. And you ask yourself, what am I exaggerating about myself in this narrative? And what am I minimizing about myself in this narrative? From there, you ask yourself, what is the full truth about the other person in this situation? What is it like to be them on the receiving end of me? What about them have I been exaggerating and focusing on? What about them have I been minimizing or ignoring? How have I, or a group of people that I'm a part of, added to the other person's burden? And then in reconnecting with that sense of the other person's humanity, asking, what is the right thing to do for this person that I am resisting? And then act on that impression. Now, as with any new way of approaching things, expect yourself to be clumsy at this as you first begin. You may even begin to think, wow, there's no validity to this. This is so hard. The other people really are as wrong as I feel that they are. But if you're willing to be persistent in your efforts in this area, you will have experiences where you will go, oh, that's what they're talking about. And where you will experience, wow, this really does change how I feel. This really does change the options available to me. This really does change, in many cases, the influence I am able to have to help my child, who I love, have good things happen in their lives. We encourage you to have ongoing conversations with this and be open to the feedback from your child's therapist and team about times when they may see that your box is active. The next step from here also is to make sure that you learn about collusions, the way that people are in the box with each other, and learn the steps of helping to exit collusions, but always in the process of exiting collusions. The process of getting out of the box yourself is the first step.